This is Good News Reflections for July 22nd from the Lakes Church here in Wapaka. My name is Bruce Bushweiler, and today we're reading from Matthew 22. First time I read this assignment, I went, whoa, there's way too much here for a single daily reflection. So as always, I would encourage you to read and reflect on the entire chapter. If you've spent any time at all in the Word, you would know this familiar teaching from Jesus from this particular chapter. It starts out with the parable of the wedding banquet, goes on to talk about our responsibility in giving, then marriage in heaven, the two greatest commandments, and finally that He, Jesus, is the Son of God. For today's talk, let's first examine the parable of the wedding banquet. Let me read the first few verses. So chapter 22. The parable of the wedding banquet. Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like the king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them to come, but they refused to come. Then he sent more servants and said, 'Tell those who have been invited that I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fattened cattle have been butchered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.' But they paid no attention and went off, one to his field, another to his business. One went golfing, another fishing, another had to mow his lawn. The king was enraged. He sent his army to destroy the murderers and burn their city." Of course, that's not exactly how those verses read, but you do recognize our world in the way I read it. Look around on your way to worship on Sunday mornings. The golf courses and the lakes are full of people who were invited to the feast but decided not to come. Did those folks lose their invitation? Forget that God had asked us to set aside one day a week to rest and worship Him, or just reject the invitation? Of course, everyone is different, so let's read verse 8. Verse 8 reads, "Then he said to his servants, 'The wedding banquet is ready, but those I invited did not deserve to come. Go to the street corners and invite to the banquet anyone you find.' So the servants went out into the streets and gathered all the people they could find, both good and bad, and the wedding hall was filled with guests." Who are the servants that the king sends out to the streets? Well, of course, that's us. We are told to go out and invite people to hear the good news of the gospel. Our church, the Lakes, has an inviting new entryway, modern nursery, and most of all, spirit-filled worship. Invite someone to share fellowship with us. Yes, it can be daunting, and it can be discouraging, especially in dealing with our own family, but that is our assignment, you know. God understands this, so Jesus says in verse 14, "For many are invited, but few are chosen." The second part of the reading I'd like to review is the aspect of taxes and giving back to God. The Pharisees asked the question in verse 17. Verse 17 reads, "Tell us then, what is your opinion?" They're speaking to Jesus. "Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, "You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax." They brought him a denarius, and he asked them, "Whose portrait is on it, and whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. Then he said to them, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." God puts governments in place for His purpose. We are to obey our government, for sure at least, as Jesus explains in the paying of taxes. And we know that God provides everything for us, including our time and money. Jesus makes it perfectly clear that He expects us to give back to God our first fruits. It pleases our Father when we share this promise with our friends and neighbors and support His work. Invite someone today to come and worship with us.